Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
It's time once again to dive into the latest happenings in the world of film and television and media.
Right.
Global industry.
Global, yeah.
We've got a really fascinating collection of news for you all today.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be pretty fun to connect the dots.
It is going to be.
We've got stories about awards, productions, and the challenges they're facing.
Yeah.
Content regulations, all kinds of stuff.
Executive moves.
Executive moves.
Yeah.
Festival news.
Festival news. All the good stuff.
All the good stuff.
Yeah.
So we're really excited to take you through this journey today.
Yeah, and to break down these complex stories into those real insightful takeaways for our listeners so they can have that shortcut to understanding what's really happening.
I love it. Well said. Okay, so let's get started. Shall we? Let's start with, I guess, some recognition, some awards.
Yeah, we can start with the prestigious David Di Donatello Awards in Italy.
Yeah.
This is essentially their version of the Oscars. And we've got two frontrunners here, actually.
Wrong.
They both have 15 nominations each.
Wow.
So that's Paolo Sorrentino's Parthenope, a film that's a beautiful tribute to the city of Naples.
Okay.
And then we have Andreas Segre's The Great Ambition, and that's a political biopic.
Okay.
And both of those films have been nominated for Best Film and Best Director, among other categories.
Well, okay, that's impressive, 15 nominations.
Quite a feat.
Yeah.
And then also in the running, we have two other strong contenders, Vermiglio and L'Arte della Gioia.
Yeah, okay.
Those both received 14 nominations each.
Wow.
So really.
It seems like a very exciting time for Italian cinema.
It really does, yeah.
Yeah.
And then even if we look at the Best International Film category, that's also really insightful.
Okay.
Because it gives us a snapshot of which global productions are resonating with Italian audiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this year, the nominees are Anora, Conclave, Juror, #2, The Zone of Interest, and Perfect Days.
Okay, so an interesting mix.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
A lot of those I haven't even heard of.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move from awards to a different kind of support for content creation.
Okay.
And this is in Canada, and it has to do with their public broadcaster, CBC Radio Canada. So what's going on there?
So Prime Minister Mark Carney has pledged to increase their annual funding
Oh, wow.
by 150 million Canadian dollars.
That's a pretty substantial commitment.
It is, and it really goes to show that they want to strengthen Canadian cultural programming,
Okay.
Canadian journalism, and, regional content across the board.
Yeah.
And it's particularly noteworthy because there have been calls recently to privatize the broadcaster.
Right.
So this really reaffirms.
Makes a strong statement
Yeah, it makes a strong statement.
that public broadcasting is important to them.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so a very different approach to content creation support, we can say.
It is. Yeah, very different from just letting the commercial market dictate what's available.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now
Now.
we're going to go somewhere very different. We're going to go to Norway,
Okay.
to Svalbard.
Svalbard.
So I don't know if you've ever seen pictures, but this is like
I haven't been, but I have.
like way up north.
Way up north.
And it's got this like incredible stark beauty.
Yeah.
These like fjords and
Fjords and glaciers.
glaciers, yeah.
Absolutely.
And so what's going on in Svalbard?
So there's actually a political push to make it a hub for film production,
Oh, wow.
which is pretty interesting.
Okay.
And so politicians from the Horror Party, they're pushing for some regulatory changes that would basically allow productions that are based in Svalbard to be eligible for all this funding
Okay.
from the Norwegian Film Institute and other schemes.
Right.
So it's really about, boosting the economic potential.
Yeah, I could see that like logistically it's probably very difficult and expensive
It is.
to shoot there.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's not entirely new to film.
Okay.
They have had productions like the BBC's The North Water, which filmed there. And there's also support already coming in from Arctic Film Norway and Polar X, which are regional film bodies.
Okay, so there's already a bit of an infrastructure.
There is a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think about how a location like that really impacts the storytelling.
Absolutely.
And potentially, how it would work with international co-productions.
Yeah, it almost becomes like another character in the film,
It does.
doesn't it? You think of like Lord of the Rings in New Zealand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, Svalbard has this very particular, very distinctive look.
Very much so.
Okay, so we've talked about a couple of different ways that content can be supported.
Yes.
But of course, there are also some challenges
Always.
in the world of film and television.
Right.
And so I want to talk about what's going on in Australia right now,
Okay.
because they've been trying to introduce these new content rules for streamers like Netflix and Amazon and all of them.
Yeah, so they've been trying to implement these local content quotas for streaming platforms, but the rollout has actually been delayed.
Right.
It was supposed to start July 1st of last year.
Okay.
But it's been postponed because they're still negotiating with the U.S. administration.
Okay, so it's like an international trade issue.
It is very much so, yeah.
Okay, and so what kind of impact has this had?
So it's had a pretty big impact.
Okay.
There was a survey done by Screen Producers Australia, and it found that 170 commissions have either been stalled or have collapsed completely.
Oh.
Because of this uncertainty.
Yeah, it makes sense because these production companies need to know what the rules are going to be.
They do.
So they can plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the Motion Picture Association has actually warned that these mandates could violate the U.S. Free Trade Agreement.
Okay, so that's adding another layer of complication.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And they estimate that about $1 billion in production budgets and 15,000 screen jobs are at risk.
Wow, that's huge.
It's significant.
Yeah.
But the Prime Minister has said that he remains committed to supporting Australian content.
Okay, so it sounds like they're trying to find a way through this.
They are. It's a difficult balance.
Yeah.
You know, supporting local creativity while also respecting these international trade agreements.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so in contrast to that,
Yes.
let's look at what's happening in the EU.
Okay.
Because they're taking a very different approach.
Yes. So they're actually expanding their financial support
Okay.
for the European film industry.
Okay, sounds good.
So two main things here.
Okay.
The first is that they're launching 141 million euros in loan guarantees
Okay.
through the European Investment Fund, also known as the EIF.
Okay.
And this is specifically targeted at SMEs,
Okay.
which are small and medium-sized enterprises,
Okay.
which, as you know, make up a big part of the independent film and TV sector.
Right.
And essentially, loan guarantees reduce the risk for lenders.
Okay.
So it makes it easier for these SMEs to access financing.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then secondly, the EIF has also approved a 25 million euro equity investment in logical content ventures.
Okay.
And that's part of Median Invest's 400 million euro strategy.
Wow, okay.
And equity investment basically means that they provide capital in exchange for a stake in the company.
Okay.
So it helps them grow.
Right.
So the overall goal here is to improve access to capital for European filmmakers.
Okay.
And production companies, particularly the smaller independent players.
Okay, so they're really targeting the
Yeah.
independent scene.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I guess the hope is that this will lead to more productions
Yes,
and a stronger European film industry.
absolutely. The goal is to enhance financial accessibility, strengthen the support for these SMEs, and to really encourage international collaboration within the European audiovisual sector. And all of that really helps strengthen Europe's overall global position.
Yeah, okay. So it's interesting to compare that to Australia,
It is.
right? One is more regulation focused.
Yeah.
The other one is more
Financial support.
financial support.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how both of those play out.
it will.
Okay. Now I want to bring in the perspective of someone who's actually working in production right now.
Okay.
So Derek Drennan, the managing director of Nest Productions.
Okay.
And he's been talking about some of the challenges facing unscripted TV.
Yeah, he's been pretty vocal about that.
Yeah. So what is he saying?
Well, he says it's a pretty challenging climate right now.
Okay.
He's pointing to funding gaps
Okay.
and a general slowdown in the commissioning of new projects.
Okay. So it's harder to get things made.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is he's been advocating for tax relief, specifically for unscripted projects.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is very similar to what we were just talking about with the EU.
With different forms of support.
Different forms of support, yeah.
Right.
And he also really emphasizes the importance of global partnerships. He says that's really crucial right now.
Yeah. So I guess you have to look further afield to get things made.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And his company, Nest Productions, really embodies that belief.
Okay.
You know, they provide support for independent companies.
Okay.
They help them with infrastructure.
Okay.
They help facilitate co-production opportunities.
Okay.
And they also focus on the welfare of those who are working in the industry.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah.
And one thing he really believes in
Okay.
is that you need to combine strong creative ideas
Yeah.
with experienced production teams
Okay.
to really be successful.
Yeah. That makes sense. You need both sides of it.
Absolutely.
The vision and the practical know-how.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move now to another challenge, I guess we could say.
Okay.
And this is more about recognition within the industry.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about Ian Katz from Channel 4.
Yeah, he's their chief content officer.
Right.
And he's actually been making a case for giving more recognition to development teams in independent production companies.
Yeah. Right, because often you just hear about like the director or the writer.
Exactly, yeah. And he's saying that, these development teams are really crucial.
Right.
They come up with all the fresh ideas and they shape the content.
Right.
But their work is often overlooked. So he's really trying to shine a light on that.
Yeah, highlight those unsung heroes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating because it gives us a glimpse into how the industry actually works.
Yeah, behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
And highlights the crucial work that happens long before anything makes it to the screen.
Okay, so moving on from challenges and recognition.
Right?
I want to talk about some specific content now.
Okay.
And I want to start with the BBC.
Okay.
Because they've got this new thriller coming out called Reunion.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one.
What makes it so interesting?
Well, it's created by William Major, who is a deaf writer.
Okay.
And the series itself is bilingual, so it seamlessly weaves together British Sign Language and spoken English.
Wow. Okay.
And the cast is also made up of both deaf and hearing actors.
Okay, that's great.
So it's a really important step forward in on-screen representation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the story itself is a 4-part thriller that explores themes of redemption identity and the complex relationships within the deaf community.
Wow, that's fascinating. And I like that they're doing it as a thriller.
Yeah.
Because it appeals to a wide audience.
Absolutely. And it's premiering on both BBC One and their streaming platform iPlayer.
Okay, so lots of ways to watch it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I want to go from a traditional media company like the BBC to something very different.
Okay.
The creator economy.
The wild, wild west.
Yeah, exactly. And so specifically, I want to talk about Reed Dusher and his company, Night Media.
Okay.
Because I think they're doing some really interesting stuff.
They are.
Yeah, so tell me about them.
Well, their model is really interesting. It's like a hybrid. They do talent management.
Okay.
But they also have this kind of VC-style investment approach.
Okay.
And then they also do what they call creator incubation.
Okay, so a lot of different things.
Yeah, it's multifaceted.
Yeah.
And Dusher himself actually started out as a sports agent.
Oh, interesting.
And then he transitioned into the digital media world.
Okay.
And he's probably best known for managing Mr. Beast.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he's huge.
Yeah, one of the biggest.
Yeah.
And Night Media has grown quite a lot.
Oh?
They represent over 65 creators now.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and they really operate at this intersection of Hollywood and Silicon Valley.
Yeah, they're transforming these digital influencers into major business entities.
Yeah. And it's really changing what we consider to be entertainment.
Absolutely. It's blurring all the lines.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got this new world of creator economy.
Right.
And then we've got more traditional players like Netflix.
Yeah.
And they're always looking for new things.
Always innovating.
Yeah. And so what's their latest move?
Well, they're actually greenlighting a Monopoly reality competition series.
Oh, really? Like the board game?
Like the board game, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So how's that going to work?
I don't know the details yet.
Okay.
But it seems like they're going for that large-scale social experiment vibe.
Okay.
Like Squid Game. A challenge.
Right. Riding that wave.
Exactly. Yeah, cashing in on that trend.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll hear more about that soon.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's move now to some upcoming projects and talent moves.
Okay.
And I want to start with the Cannes Film Festival.
Okay.
Because the lineup is going to be revealed soon.
Very soon, actually, April 10th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what are people saying?
There are a lot of rumors, as always.
Yeah.
But some of the potential big Hollywood films include Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, Ari Aster's Eddington, and Wes Anderson's new film, The Phoenician Scheme.
Wes Anderson. I love his films.
Me too.
So visually distinct.
Yeah, and he always has these amazing casts.
Yeah, so tell me more about this one.
Okay, so it's set in the world of 1940s espionage.
Okay.
And the cast includes Benicio del Toro.
Wow.
Tom Hanks.
Okay.
Bryan Cranston.
All right.
Scarlett Johansson.
Okay.
Willem Dafoe.
Oh, wow.
Michael Cera.
Okay.
And Riz Ahmed.
So some Anderson regulars.
Yeah, and some new faces.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Okay.
And who's doing the cinematography?
Bruno Del Bonel.
Oh, wow. He's incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I'm already
Right.
excited for this.
That's going to be good.
Yeah. Okay. So besides Cannes,
Yes.
AMC is developing a new series based on a classic American novel.
They are. It's The Grapes of Wrath.
Oh, wow, John Steinbeck.
John Steinbeck, yeah.
Okay, so what's their angle?
So this is part of their Great American Stories initiative.
Okay.
And they're aiming to modernize the story for a contemporary audience.
Okay.
Highlighting the themes of economic displacement and environmental concerns, which are still very relevant today. And they actually have the support of the Steinbeck estate.
Okay, so it sounds like they're trying to do it right.
They are
No.
trying to be respectful of the source material.
Yeah. Okay, now we've talked a lot about content,
Yes.
but there are also a lot of people moving around
Always.
in the industry.
Always.
Yeah. So what are some of the notable talent moves that you've seen?
Well, there's actually a lot of movement internationally.
Okay.
So Propagate, for example, they've
Yeah.
appointed a new head of international content
Okay.
to lead their global expansion.
Okay.
And they've also hired someone new to lead strategic growth in the Middle East and Africa.
Wow.
Okay. And then Beach House Pictures in Singapore.
Right.
They've hired a new head of commercial and marketing,
Uh-huh.
previously worked at BBC Studios and Warner Bros. Discovery.
Wow, big names.
Big names, yeah.
Yeah, so that shows their ambition.
Yeah, they're looking to expand their global reach.
Right.
And then Urbania in Montreal.
Yeah.
They're focusing on French language content for younger audiences.
Okay.
And they've hired a new producer to help with that.
Okay.
So all these strategic moves.
It's all about strategy.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And then we also have some changes at the platform level.
Okay.
Sony Pictures has promoted Jay Levine to Chief Strategy Officer.
Okay.
So that suggests they're really focused on long-term strategic planning,
Yeah.
innovation.
Makes sense.
And then Pam Levine, who's a very experienced marketing executive.
Okay.
She previously worked at Disney and National Geographic.
Oh, wow.
She's joined Netflix
Okay.
as VP of U.S. and Canada Marketing and Publicity.
Okay, so a big role.
A big role, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of shifting around.
A lot of shifting.
Yeah.
And then finally, in the world of animation,
Okay.
John Oshima.
Okay.
He's a very well-respected animation director.
Okay.
He signed a multi-year deal with Warner Bros. Pictures Animation to develop original projects and studio productions.
Okay.
And he's also going to be a guest director for season 2 of Netflix's Blue Eye Samurai.
Wow. Okay, so he's keeping busy.
Very busy.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah.
So as always, lots going on.
Always something happening.
Yeah. So just to wrap up,
Right.
we've talked about a lot today.
We have.
But I think there are some key themes that have emerged.
Yeah.
We've seen different approaches to supporting local content,
Yes.
whether that's through direct funding or regulations.
Right.
We've seen that production is facing a lot of challenges.
Yes. Particularly the unscripted world.
Yeah.
Facing some headwinds.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, the rise of streaming
Yeah.
and the creator economy.
It's a whole new world.
It is, yeah.
Uh,
And so it'll be interesting to see how all of this plays out.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess my final thought for the listeners,
Okay.
and you can chime in too,
Yeah.
is, given all these trends that we've talked about,
Yeah.
the way that content is funded,
Right.
the way that it's created,
Yeah.
the platforms that it's on,
All of it.
what kinds of stories do you think are going to resonate the most with audiences in the future?
That's a big question.
Yeah. And how will the way that we consume content continue to evolve?
Yeah. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think so too.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today.
Okay.
So as always, thank you for listening to The Deep Dive.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
And keep exploring the world of film and television and media.
And we'll be back soon.
Yeah. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.